24.63 reais. That is what Brazilian prosecutors found when they went to seize Ronaldinho's assets. About $6. The man who once earned millions, who made the world smile with a no-look pass and a samba goal, had less than the price of a sandwich in his bank account. But this is not a story about poverty, because at the same time the courts had blocked 57 properties in his name, seized a hidden empire of land and buildings locked away from the state. The greatest showman in football, and the government could touch exactly $6 of it. So how did a global icon end up with pocket change while owning a fortune the law couldn't reach? The answer is not bankruptcy. It is not bad luck. It is a game he played off the pitch with the same flair he used on it. And the whistleblower, he was there from the start. You are a Brazilian prosecutor. You have a warrant to seize the fortune of one of the most famous footballers on earth. You expect millions. You find a bank account with virtually nothing in it, a paltry sum that wouldn't buy a sandwich. But this is not a story about poverty, because the same court order that turned up that empty account also blocks 57 properties. 57. Seized due to unpaid fines and taxes. So the man who once juggled a ball on the world's biggest stages owns a hidden real estate empire, yet the state can touch almost none of it. The contradiction is staggering. He has his passport confiscated in 2018. He spends 32 days in a Paraguayan prison in 2020 over a falsified passport, and through it all, the money stays invisible. The courts rule that idols are not above the law, but the law can't find the cash. How could a global icon have almost no cash while owing millions? You are a Brazilian prosecutor. You've seen it all: tax evaders, shell companies, men who hide millions in offshore accounts. But this case is different. The target is Ronaldinho Gaúcho, the man who made the world smile. And when you finally get a court order to freeze his assets, you expect to find anything. Instead, you find 24.63 reais, $6. But that's not the whole story. Because while his bank accounts are empty, his name sits on 57 properties, mansions, land, commercial buildings, all blocked by the courts. He owes fines, environmental fines, for building an illegal pier on protected land at Lake Guaíba. The state ruled idols are not above the law, yet the money never comes. So in 2018, you take his passport. You ground the man who once flew across the world on private jets. He cannot leave Brazil. He cannot play. He cannot escape. But here's the question that keeps you up at night. What did he owe that was so massive? The courts took his freedom to move. Subscribe to uncover how power bends the rules. The court orders the seizure of 57 properties, enough to house a small village. But when the bailiffs arrive, they find a maze. Each title is held by a different name: a cousin, a shell company, a trust registered in a city the prosecutors have never visited. The state tries to map the labyrinth, but every document leads to another dead end. The illegal pier at Lake Guaíba, that fine alone was staggering. Yet the properties keep surfacing: a penthouse in Porto Alegre, a ranch in the interior, a gated estate that doesn't appear on any public registry. The court blocks them all one by one, but the bank accounts remain empty. How? Picture this: Lake Guaíba, a protected environmental zone in southern Brazil. The water is calm, the shoreline fragile. And there, rising from the mud and reeds, private pier. Not a simple wooden plank, a luxury dock, built for a man who once juggled a football on a beach in front of 1 billion people. Ronaldinho wanted his own slice of paradise. But the law had other plans. The construction was illegal. The land was protected. Therefore, the state fined him 8.5 million reais, a fortune, enough to buy a fleet of cars or a small apartment building. He didn't pay. So the court escalated. In 2018, they confiscated his passport. No more international travel, no more flights to Europe or Asia for appearances. The greatest showman on earth was grounded. He appealed. Brazil's superior court heard the case. Their ruling was blunt. Idols are not above the law. The pier stood as a symbol, not of luxury, but of defiance. A concrete challenge to a system that had let him slide for years. But the system was now pushing back. The fine grew, the debts mounted, and the pier, that simple structure of wood and concrete, became the anchor dragging him under. How does a simple pier become a symbol of defiance against the law? Why did Ronaldinho end up in a Paraguayan prison? In March 2020, the football legend arrives in Asunción for a charity event. He flashes a passport, but the document is a forgery. Paraguayan authorities detain him at the airport. The man who once mesmerized stadiums now sits in a concrete cell, his smile gone. He spends 32 days behind bars, sharing space with drug traffickers and murderers. His brother Roberto is locked up beside him. The world watches in disbelief. The most joyful player in history, reduced to a prisoner number. But this is not a random mistake. His real passport had been confiscated in 2018, seized by a Brazilian court over unpaid fines. He knew he couldn't leave the country legally, so he took a risk. He paid for a fake document, hoping to slip across the border unnoticed. The plan failed. Now, to walk free, he must pay $1.6 million in bail, a fortune, yet a fraction of what he once earned. The money appears. He is released. But the question lingers, why would a man with hidden wealth, with 57 properties, still untouched by the state, risk prison for a forged passport? What was he running from that was worth the risk? The Superior Court of Brazil delivers its final word. The judges rule that idols are not above the law. Ronaldinho loses his appeal. The state can touch his assets, but only the ones they can find. You are a forensic accountant now. You trace the paper trail. The 57 properties are seized, yes, but the real question is, what stayed hidden? Properties registered in the names of relatives, shell companies, offshore accounts. The kind of empire that doesn't show up on a bank statement. The court confiscates his passport in 2018. He spends 32 days in a Paraguayan prison in 2020. He pays $1.6 million in bail, yet the man who had just $6 in his account still lives in luxury. How? This is the unsettling truth. The law can rule, it can seize, it can imprison, but it cannot find what is never declared. The system catches the visible. The invisible empire remains. So the question lingers. What does this case teach us about power, fame, and the limits of the law? The answer is not in the courtroom. It is in the silence of the hidden accounts, and the next idol is already building theirs. So how did the world's most beloved footballer end up with just $6 to his name, while owning a hidden empire the courts couldn't touch? The answer is simple. He didn't lose the money. He hid it. Prosecutors found 24.63 reais in his accounts. That's about $6, but they also blocked 57 properties, seized due to unpaid fines and taxes. The state could touch the land, it couldn't touch the man. Ronaldinho had his passport confiscated in 2018. He spent 32 days in a Paraguayan prison in March 2020 over a falsified passport. Yet the money stayed invisible. The showman kept performing. Here's the lesson. The system is built on paper, assets, fines, judgments, all ink. But wealth that moves through trusts, shell companies, or friendly names, that's smoke. The law can seize what it finds. It cannot find what it doesn't know exists. Ronaldinho didn't beat the system. He exploited its blind spots, the same blind spots that let a billionaire hide a fortune in a Swiss vault, or a drug lord launder cash through a chain of laundromats. The game is always the same. Make the money disappear before the handcuffs appear. So who's running the next one? The next smiling face with a hidden empire and an empty bank account? The next legend who knows that the law can only take what it can see? This is the Monopoly Matrix, where money meets the law.